Hello, everyone, and welcome to One Control Port Podcast, episode 192. I'm Benjamin Yoder, here today. Talked about video games. I think we're going to have a pretty light week this week. We might see if we can do either a video game bit or actually have some stuff I've been watching too that I could talk about a little bit. So we'll see how much time we have left at the end of the podcast and see what makes the most sense. I did beat a game this week, though. I did finally beat the Tozan RPG, or Climbing RPG. So I finished up all the mountaintops on there. The one exception is I have not gotten an S rank on the final mountain. So I'm still need to go ahead and do another couple climbs to get that S rank. I originally was maybe just gonna stick with just getting the credits to the game, but getting an S rank in that game I don't think will be that hard, and there's not a ton of information about that game out there, so I think it might be worth going on my way to get the S rank to see if anything unlocks after you get the full ranking across the board, because I've S ranked every other mountain in that game. So I think I will sit down and finish that up. And then the other thing I've been doing is I've been playing Gauntlet. Now, this Gauntlet is not the original Gauntlet. I'm playing Gauntlet 2014, specifically the Slayers Edition. We've been playing it on Steam, so this is the Left 4 Dead group. We decided to take a break from Left 4 Dead 2 for now. I think there is some desire in that group to go back to it, but I think it's also a desire to take a break right now. so we'll see what happens there. But anyways, so we did start playing Gauntlet, and it's pretty fun. I haven't played a Gauntlet in a long time, but it's more or less just kind of like a top-down action RPG in this case. Kind of Diablo-ish, but more arcadey. So you're not getting loot or anything like that. You're just kind of picking up money, and then you use that money to buy some very minor upgrades. I'm playing the Archer, so run around and shoot arrows everywhere. And so with the Archer, the big thing I've been doing is the initial weapon you have is like an explosive arrow shot you can do, as well as like you can also drop a bomb by your feet. So you can kind of like clear out packs of enemies. But what I changed my weapon to now has like this mortar shot, so I can kind of like shoot this flame arrow above enemies. It's not really like an explosion, but it kind of like does a little like cluster bomb of explosions after it. So I've been enjoying that. Although the whenever you get a weapon, it's like attached with like both a close range and a ranged skill, and that mortar shot is the ranged skill, but the close range skill is like this weird flip over the enemy where you shoot a beam of fire down. I have not found any use for that, so I really have just been relying on the mortar shot one. But there's only like 4 weapons per character in the game as far as I can tell, so there's not a ton of variety, other than just occasionally you can switch out a different piece of gear. Some gear is the same between all the other characters. So like one talisman I have allows me to like shoot arrows faster and also run faster and things like that. But yeah, we've been playing on hard. That group, after talking about wanting to play Left 4 Dead 2 on expert, that group was like, we should just play Gauntlet on hard as well. It's like, sure, I guess. So we're playing it on hard. And it is a challenging game in a lot of ways. So on hard at least. But we have been making good and steady progress towards the end of the game. It's kind of like spread out into different levels in this one. So you have a map that you kind of go down, and there's like some split paths on the map where you can go do like optional objectives and things like that. But I think if you've ever played any kind of like top-down action RPG kind of thing, it's kind of like that, just not really any leveling system, just some like basic gear upgrading and no like drop system or anything like that. So probably Diablo Light would be a good way to kind of put it. I think in some ways you could say that's kind of what Gauntlet was in the first place. I would need to go back and play some original Gauntlet. It's been a while, but I think it is still fairly faithful to what Gauntlet is, and also had some more modern sensibilities about it and how you played it. There are some like memes in the game, for sure. So I don't know how I feel about that, but that stuff ages about as well as any joke from 2014 that was relevant for probably like 2 or 3 months ages, right? So yeah, the one thing I found on the PC version, so I've been playing mostly with mouse and keyboard. I don't know, something about shooting arrows in Gauntlet using the mouse seemed like the right thing to do. But one of the problems is that the mouse cursor on screen when you're kind of like moving it around is dependent on where you're pointing on screen, right? But the camera in that game moves around quite a bit. And so there's a lot of times where you just be like shooting something and you like kind of go to look at something else. And while you're looking at something else, the camera shifts, and then whatever you're shooting at, you're no longer hitting it anymore. You're just like firing right beside it. So that's kind of one problem I have with the mouse and keyboard controls. And using the gamepad seemed to resolve that. Although at some point when I was playing, the gamepad just straight up stopped working, so I went back to mouse and keyboard. I don't know if that's like I was using one of these like USB ports on the top of my PC here, and sometimes I have a little bit of problem with them. So I don't know if that was a issue with the game itself or my PC just being like, I don't know what this USB port is. What are you trying to do, dude? so yeah. Although I did have one time where I plugged the controller in, the entire game crashed. That was a fun, interesting thing. So seems fine, but a little short maybe, and not a lot of mainline content that seems like it would be. It doesn't seem like a long-term game, right? It doesn't seem like something you're going to spend a lot of time with. Obviously you could level all the different characters and stuff, but the campaign itself is, in essentially about 1.5 nights, let's say 1.5 nights of playing. We've gotten through the majority of the game. And if you play with another character, you're just going to go through the campaign again. There is like an endless mode. And then I think there's also like a daily challenge mission too, where you can like unlock different capes, which are just aesthetic stuff. All the appearance stuff, like the headpieces, body armor, capes, those are all just like aesthetic changes, but it's all very expensive with in-game currency. As far as I can tell, there's no, or at least no microtransactions within the game itself. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some DLC, but no microtransactions with the game itself, as far as I can tell. But everything is very, very expensive, and that's, I think, where kind of the grinding comes into play there. It's also character dependent, so if you're like playing one character, you don't get gold to share between all your other characters. Although certain achievements do give you gold for every character. So, yeah. And then the other thing I played, and I actually played this a few weeks ago, I don't know if I mentioned this on the podcast, was Magic Fantasy, which is a Doujin game by, I think it's like a Tokyo University student. Or students. I don't know if it's one person or multiple. I can't find any credits for the game. Sometimes, like, when the Doujin games will get like a README file with it, and it'll tell you like who made it, where their contacts are, or like their Twitter account, or their website, things like that. This one did not have anything like that, and I tried to do some research about the game, and I couldn't find anything. Unsurprisingly, probably. But this was put out by the X68000 Club, which I mentioned a while ago with that one gag game I played. I forget the name of that gag game. And so it's a short game, probably about 5 to 10 minutes, but when I played it last time, it really left an impression on me. I kept thinking about it, so I decided to go ahead and do an article for it. So I sat down and wrote something out for it. Honestly, it probably could have been a video, but I just didn't. I already have enough on my plate right now, so I was like, the intention right now on the website is to write Doujin articles. So worst case scenario, I can adapt this to a video later if I need to. But right now, I'm just going to go ahead and write it up. So I did that in a few hours today. Funny that it took me like 3 to 4 hours to write the article when the game takes about 5 to 10 minutes to play. But I think there's something interesting about how that game is paced. And kind of how it teaches the player about how to fight the boss. It's not a particularly hard game, so it's not like, you're grinding or challenge. It's not like this huge challenge or anything like that. But being able to see how the game tries to convey information and how it paces its enemies out and how the enemies attack you is pretty interesting. So I wrote something for it. I technically have categorized it on the website as a review. It's one of those things that I just don't really know. So I think I used to spend a lot of time thinking a lot about like what is a review. So that's why you end up with things like the never-ending backlog on the YouTube channel is what the series is called. It was not a review. It's just talking about my backlog game that I basically played the entire thing about. but because I only want to talk about like specific things about a game, I wouldn't necessarily say it's a review. In the case of this game, I focus very heavily on that pacing. That is what I'm writing about. But at the same time, there's just like I could sit there and get into like the nitty-gritty of like how the game feels to play or something, but it just kind of doesn't really feel relevant, especially with how short the game is. It doesn't really matter. It's not really a part of a problem with that game, I feel like. And like some of that like weird and funkiness just comes down to the fact it's a Doujin game. And like, do I need to explain every single time what a Doujin game is? That's a hard thing. The answer is probably yes. But in terms of like making quality content for the website, maybe not the best approach to it, maybe. I don't know. I just don't want to open up every single Doujin article with, hey, Doujin games, they're a little rough, huh? Sometimes they're a little rough. And you know why they're a little rough? Because this. It's just not, I don't know. It's not something I want to just continue to harp on. I've been talking more about Doujin games recently, so I think I've been saying it more often, like in the what's that game called? The Flying in the Night Sky game or whatever it's called, Vroom in the Night Sky for the Switch. I talked about it there. I talked about it in the El Shaddai article thing. Like, I think I talked about it in some other case too. And it's just like, how many times do I have to sit here and say, well, Doujin games are blah, 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 blah. Probably not every time. So I will probably, for now, until I make some other decision, just leave it at that and be like, okay, more or less, I'm not going to talk about what the problems is, like the stuff that's like, oh, the controls are not great, unless it's like really not great, right? Like if it just feels a little unpolished, again, 5-minute video game, like I think it's fine. But if the controls are frustrating, like things like, you know, in El Shaddai where you're jumping on the boar and you're like have to land on this little sliver of a back. I think that stuff is definitely valid to sit there and talk about every time. But just saying like, hey, this game feels a little, it's not a AAA video game. I don't know. Anyways, so it's categorized technically under review on the website. Whether it should be or not, I don't know. But it's going to be there. And I can make that decision to change it later if I need to. So not a huge deal. And that's pretty much all I've been playing recently. So I like I said, I'm going to get back to the Tozan RPG here in a second. And then I did play a little bit more Final Fantasy 15 Comrades. I actually forgot about that. Let me talk about that later, actually. I want to put more time into that and see how that goes. So I'll get back to you on Final Fantasy 15 Comrades, because I feel like there's going to be more for me to talk about it in the next coming weeks or so. So in terms of news this week, there's not a lot, but I do want to actually give a correction. It's been a while since we had a correction. Shining Nikki, I talked about it, I think last week, and I was like, oh, new Shining Nikki game. Apparently it's not new. So it's coming out in Japan soon. They just had the beta test in Japan, it seems like. But in China and Korea, it is older, and I think by a couple years. And I think in Korea, the game's actually shut down a while ago. So, you know, it's apparently not new. I just was not aware of it. So just so you're aware, you know, it's coming to Japan soon, but it's not something that's actually new, and it does not have a US release yet either. I think Love Nikki did pretty well in the US. So, and it sounds like Shiny Nikki did well in China. It just didn't do well in Korea. So I'm not sure why that's the case, but I don't know if Love Nikki did well in Korea or not. So yeah, but just as a quick correction, the other thing I wanted to follow up on real quick actually is that a couple weeks ago we mentioned there'd be a Sword Art Online stream, and then I realized last week we didn't talk about it afterwards because I was like, oh, there might be a game announcement thing during there. What that Sword Art Online stream ended up having was just like downloadable content information for Alicization Lycoris. I did not really look into it because I honestly was just like, if it's DLC, I'll get to Alicization Lycoris at some point, and then we'll worry about the DLC when I get there, right? I'm not super, I'm already interested in that game, just I'm not super interested in jumping into it, and I don't think the DLC is going to change my opinion on that. So, I didn't see anyone really report on it either, so, but I don't know. Anyways, so that was not a new video game, which I'm okay with, because I still have another Sword Art Online game that I want to play. But anyways, to jump into real news this week, the God of Protectors Switch game, also known as like Protect Me Knight, is apparently has its translation complete. So if you don't know what God of Protectors is, it's kind of like a tower defense game where you try to protect this princess, and you have like a variety of classes and stuff like that. And there's a 3DS game that came out a handful of years ago, pretty flawed in a lot of ways, to be honest with you. But it was it's a very charming game, and the ending is also very cute, if I recall correctly as well. I don't know if I really talked about it that much outside of maybe just talking about it on the podcast. But yeah, but that game was a local multiplayer only thing and very heavily multiplayer focused. So the new Switch one is actually an online multiplayer game. I'm kind of surprised it took so long to get localized though, because apparently it's been out in Japan since 2019. This actually came up in a conversation I had with the Left 4 Dead group a few weeks back, and I was like, oh yeah, that thing, did that ever come out? And looked it up, and it was like, yep, apparently in Japan. I was like, well, I guess maybe it's dead in the water, but sure enough, apparently the translation is done, but I don't think they have an announced release date or anything like that. So don't know when that's happening. But God of Protectors, if you got local multiplayer going on, maybe worth playing. But the new one is gonna be online, so we'll see. I'll probably pick that up. It's actually kind of like a payload protection kind of thing, kind of like an Overwatch, where I think you like put the princess on a cart and like roll her around or something, or on a rail and like have her go around on the train, something like that. It's been a while since we talked about it, to be honest with you. So yeah. And then not really news, but I thought it was pretty interesting. Was that Xbox 360 GoldenEye leak? So if you don't know, a long time ago we found out that there was a remake of the original Nintendo 64 game GoldenEye that was going to be on Xbox Live Arcade. This is about the time that there was the actual remake of GoldenEye. I guess you call the 361 remaster, and then there's the remake of GoldenEye that happened on the Wii, a game I love. That's a great game, the Wii one. I don't really remember much about the Nintendo 64 GoldenEye at this point to say if I like it or not. But I think, I don't know. I just need to go back and play it at some point. I don't want to talk too much about it. I was a baby boy when I played that game last time. But the 360 GoldenEye one was basically a one-for-one remake, just with some overhauled graphics and things like that. Or as far as I can tell, it's like 1-to-1. And it was found out about a long time ago. Had some footage leaked, but recently the actual game itself leaked, and it sounds like it's fairly complete, if not entirely complete, which is kind of neat. So people have been playing that, and it looks really good. I like the intro a lot, which basically has it's the same as like the 64 intro, with everybody just kind of like the darkness kind of posing around and stuff while their names pop up by them. But in the case of this game, they basically half of the time they have the 64 model, and then they pop it over to the new model, so you can see like how different the changes are between the character models, and it looks pretty good. You know, it's one of those things that it's weird to see a little bit, but because the entire game was kind of overhauled, I think aesthetically the high resolution textures and increased polygon models works a lot. I think where that stuff doesn't really work out as well is like, and this is a problem I think with a lot of fan-made retexturing of games, is like when you don't alter the graph, like the actual like models themselves as much, because then you get like these really high quality textures, but then like the models are very basic and simple. Like I think about like Castlevania 64 like texture maps or pack stuff. I've seen a variety of games that have done it, and I think it always just kind of comes off as like, ooh, you know, those textures sure are cleaner. Xenoblade Chronicles on the Wii, also the people made some changes there, and I do not love how that looks either. But you know, I am probably the rare person that likes how the original Xenoblade Chronicles looks. So yeah, or maybe not the rare person, but maybe at odds with most of the Xenoblade fan base these days, given that Xenoblade Chronicles 2 blew up that series a ton, right? So yeah, I don't know if I'll ever give this thing a shot. I mean, if you don't know why it didn't come out, basically it was licensing issues, which is probably part of the reason why they just did like a complete remake of the Wii one, because they had to involve less parties for that licensing stuff. But yeah, it looks really cool and neat, and I'm glad it got out there. I hope it doesn't really get any like major attacks by any of the license holders. Hopefully they can you know, keep it around. You know, I'm sure even if people get it delisted, it will still float around somehow, some way. So we're 20 minutes in, so I'm going to go ahead and do a video gaming bit here. If you don't know what a video gaming bit is, if you're new here, basically the video gaming bit is I use the backloggery.com, and I use the fortune cookie feature, which means it basically pulls out a random game from my collection. I just select games that I've only beaten or at least put some time into, or have marked a null for some reason, and then I pull out a game and talk about it. And most of the time it's Viet Cong Purple Haze. Let's see if we get it. Viet Cong Purple Haze? No, Lost in Blue, which is a Nintendo DS game. So now that I pulled this game, I'm gonna chat about it a little bit. I feel like I've talked about Lost in Blue fairly recently, though. I don't know if it was because it was a video game bit, or if it was, I think we played it on stream or something like that. But yeah, Lost in Blue, if you ever looked at like the box art for Lost in Blue, the art style of that box is great. The characters look really nice. I love the character designs in it a lot. Do not love the game so much. It's a survival game. You know, basically you're this boy and this girl, and you get stranded on this island, and you have to like feed them, keep them hydrated, you know, go around complete tasks. I assume, you know, getting off the island at some point. You know, I never put a ton of time into it. But when I got it was like when it was new, so it was probably like 14 or 15 years old when I played that, you know, 2004, 2005, whenever it came out. And I just didn't love it. I think it was too complicated of a game for me at the time, and I was really bad at like managing those kind of like stats and stuff like that. Like 2004, 2005, I was barely playing even JRPGs at the time. I was mostly A, playing Final Fantasy 11, and then B, playing stuff like Resident Evil 4. Mostly action games and things like that. So it was not really high on my list of things to do. Anthony, if you're listening, Anthony loved how the game looked and really harassed me for many, many years about finally beating Lost in Blue at some point. But yeah, some cool things I think did though with the Nintendo DS, although honestly a lot of early Nintendo DS games did something similar, is they do have that thing where like when you put the system to sleep by closing the DS screen, it kind of does some stuff. So like you have to sit there and like, if I recall correctly, it's like with the fireplace, you kind of sit there and like do these little or do these little like touchscreen mini games to like try to get a fire going. You like blow into it, and then I believe you cover the fire for some reason for a little bit, and it like you close the DS, then you open it again, and then that would like cause the fire to start going, maybe like with a burst of oxygen. It's been a long time, so if you're like, Ben, that's not what this game has, that's probably true. I don't know how the Wii U handles that. Maybe by putting the game into like the Wii U menu, that they handle it that way. I don't know. I think Phantom Hourglass came out on Wii U, and that has a touch the screens together kind of thing. So maybe that's what it did. So yeah, but anyways, Lost in Blue, that is a video game. I don't really have that much to say about Lost in Blue, I'm realizing. So I think that's a little bit of a disappointing video game bit for me, maybe. But I did watch some stuff this week that I think might be worth chatting about. If you're like into Japan and game collecting and stuff, and like just looking at video games, I kind of got a little deep this weekend into one YouTuber's channel called KidShoryuken, which I've seen his videos around for a very long time. But I'm kind of picky with thumbnails. Might be why my thumbnails are so boring a lot of times on the channel, but if somebody's thumbnails look a certain way, I usually won't click on it. And one thing that I usually don't click on are like mascot characters on a thumbnail. And that's not to say there's anything bad about it. I think to me it's just like I don't like the logic behind thumbnails very much. So it's like there's nothing wrong with the thumbnails. It's just I don't know. I think about like how people try to sell videos through thumbnails and things like that. And, it's something I got to think about from time to time as well. And so like, I think part of me naturally is like pushes certain things out, things that like are like people with their faces and screen like, or something like that. Right. I don't really want that. Anyways, KidShoryuken channel, definitely not that. I thought by the thumbnail, I was like, that's what it might be. But yeah, it's a really cool channel with this dude who's just like lives in Japan, and he's like, we're going to walk around a game store and I'm going to talk about it. Although he records it ahead of time, then talks over the footage. And it's just like this really neat thing where he just kind of goes through game stores, pulls out a game and talks about it a little bit if he knows anything about it. Sometimes he just pulls it out and is like, I don't know what this is. What is this? Huh? Okay. It's just like a really chill thing to do. Me having gone to Japan a couple years ago, or a year and a half ago, it's probably like a year plus a couple months. But me going to Japan, there's definitely a lot of stores when he's like Akihabara that I'm like, oh, I've been there, and like I recognize exactly where he's at. He's in like one book off that has like a staircase that goes above a bunch of like games in a crate or like carts or something that I absolutely hated, because you have to like bend down to try to get in there and see what games are in there. And I was like, oh man, that I know exactly what bin that is, and I don't like that bin. so yeah, but I've been really enjoying that channel. So if you like, just like, if you just want to put something on in the background and have a dude sitting there talking about Japanese arcade or Japanese video games, usually between like, Famicom to I see about like PlayStation 2 seems to be where most of his interest is. One Famicom to PlayStation 2, so pretty wide range of interests. And it seems like maybe at like PS3 and beyond, he might have had a little bit of a drop off from there. Although he seems pretty heavily invested in the Switch. Anyways, cool channel. Check it out if that sounds interesting to you. The other thing I've been doing is been watching some anime as well. One of them is kind of gaming related, and the other one is not. Actually, the other one is kind of game related too. Although I've talked about it on the podcast before. And it's Magatsu Wahrheit. Magatsu Wahrheit. It's a little weird to pronounce. I think it might be German or something, but I don't know for sure. Anyways, but I've been enjoying that. It's a kind of it's not I'm usually like a slice of life anime kind of guy, but this is about like basically a kind of resistance group or something that ends up accidentally getting like a delivery driver mixed up in like a arms smuggling thing. So the delivery driver ends up becoming a wanted criminal, and he's just like this very, timid guy who doesn't really know how to deal with things. And that's like the perfect kind of character I want in that role. Is I want a lanky boy who has to fight or something, right? Someone who's not ready for combat kind of thing. Is very nervous around it. I like that kind of stuff. But I've been enjoying that. It is getting kind of a little into like, I guess like DNA experiment stuff in a way that I'm just like, I'm not really super into that. I'm like on episode 6 or something like that. But overall, I still do enjoy the politics between the two groups. There's like, kind of a main character on the Empire side and a main character on the Resistance side. Although the Resistance side definitely has been like the focus early on, where the guy with like with the Empire or whatever has not really had as much of a role as I thought he would have in it. But it's kind of fun. It's got like a mix of like World War I weaponry with like some futuristic weaponry. You have like rocket launchers and like rifles and guns and stuff like that. But then also people are like using swords and sometimes magic. So it's a nice mix of stuff. It's actually based off some mobile game. I don't know if that mobile game's in the US at all. I do not really care about the mobile game. I've been increasingly just like, I'm just going to block out mobile games. Unfortunately, I kind of hate it. I mean, I still look at them every week when I look at news, but I think I have kind of put them off the side and been like, I'm not going to play mobile games for a while at the very least. So yeah, I've been enjoying that. And the other anime that I started watching was, I think it's like Bottom Tier Tomozaki-kun or something like that. And this is more like slice of life-ish kind of thing. And man, I was not a huge fan of the first episode. Zero recommended it to me, and I was just like, oh boy, Zero. If I read this, like, anime descriptions, I am, like, if you don't know about me in anime, I have this weird, like, bias against anime scenarios. Like, video games, I don't care. I'll play whatever you give me. But anime, it's like, oh, no, so-and-so is in Magic High School. My brain's just like, no, I don't want to hear about Magic High School. Jesus. So I really need to not read anime descriptions, but I went and watched it, and in the first episode I was not a fan of. Everybody's kind of a jerk in the first episode. But it's one of those shows where, like, the main character is this, like, he's the top tier Smash Brothers player or whatever. So everything he sees in life is like through a video game lens. So whenever something approaches him problem in life, it's like, I just got to think about it like Smash Brothers. And I don't really like that kind of stuff very much. It just feels really unrealistic to me, but maybe it's real and I just don't, maybe I'm just not obsessive enough about Smash Brothers to know how that feels. Maybe every Smash Brothers tournament player is just like, I just got to think about Smash Brothers. That's how I get a girlfriend. I think about Smash Brothers. Yeah. And so the first episode is not great. The episodes afterwards, it becomes really just like a self-improvement anime, and there's a little bit of that gaming talk. That's just kind of like comes off as really cheesy and overdone. But I think overall it's been enjoyable. I'd say it's like a solid average show of just like a guy trying to pull himself together, which is kind of nice. I'm hoping it doesn't turn into like a harem kind of thing, but I wouldn't be surprised if it does. But we'll see. We'll see where it goes. It's still simulcasting. I think I've only seen up to episode 3. So yeah, but it's all right. It's about gaming. There's very few anime that I think handle gaming well in that way. I remember what was it called? Actually, it was literally called Gamers. The anime Gamers, actually, I remember handling it pretty well. I think it had a similar problem where like maybe the first episode was a little too much just about like, oh, let's approach my life in the gaming way. But I remember the show itself did a really good job of just kind of keeping the gaming aspect as like a set piece, but not like every character is always obsessive with gaming. What's that? There's like Wotage something or something or the other. Is like this one anime where it's like a otaku dude and a otaku lady who fall in love at like an office, and I think there's actually two pairs of them, and that one started I only read the manga for it, but it started really rough early on. But I think later on, further in the manga series, they got a lot better about kind of mediating that stuff and not just being like, I can cook 5 meals at once because I played 5 MMO characters at once, so that's a skill that I have, right? I'm not a huge fan of that kind of stuff. Anyways, I don't mean to poke fun at anime. I enjoy anime. Also, I watched some Pat Labor again. Still, Pat Labor's still good. I'm about maybe 3/4 the way through the TV series. Still love that TV series. I know, when I was looking into Pat Labor originally, people were like, hey, the TV series is not great. It's not nearly as cool or serious as the other series. And I was like, I want that lighthearted mech show thing. So I've been enjoying that, but I'm in kind of a story arc right now where it's basically this one kid who's riding around the black Pat Labor or whatever and causing some trouble. So they are fighting that. Very exciting, very descriptive great description I gave there for that anime, right? But I don't know. We'll probably talk about Pat Labor in the future whenever I get closer to finishing it at some point. But I still enjoy that show. I think I've talked about it in the past already anyway. So, anyways, that's it for this week. Thanks for coming. OneControlPort.com is the website. In terms of stuff that came out, last week I had the Valkyria Revolution review go up finally after a year of trying to put that thing together. I'm happy it's done, so if you want to go check out my hot opinion on that game, it's there. Hey, if you like my Valkyrie Revolution review, you should also go check out my Mighty Number 9 review, also a game I have a very hot opinion on, if you're interested in my hot takes. I kind of wish I had a Nier Automata review as well, but I also don't want to do that, so we're not going to ever do a Nier Automata video, probably. In terms of what's coming up next week, I had mentioned that Magic Fantasy game that I talked about earlier, that I had a blog post, or the article post for that going up on Tuesday. I don't know when I'm planning on putting those article posts out, or if there's going to be a set day or what consistency. Right now, I'm just writing them and putting them out when I write them. So we'll see. I might make it more of a scheduled thing that happens. But for now, it'll probably just kind of come whenever it makes sense. And then I also have a Xenoblade Chronicles X casual review going up on Wednesday. So you can look forward to that. I also recorded the Alleyway casual review, but that's a couple weeks out at this point. I might push it out a little bit further, depending on how the timeline of things work. Maybe just give myself a little bit of break. I've been putting out a lot of small content again, and I really want to focus on getting that Billy Hatcher video done sooner rather than later. In terms of stream stuff, Industrial Spy Operation Espionage is still what we're playing. The last couple streams, we've had to rely pretty heavily on a game guide. So, I don't want to play that game that way, but I'm just having so much trouble progressing in a way that makes sense without it. So we'll probably continue to follow that game guide, but I'll give it a legit shot. Every single time I'll try to finish the level on my own first, and then if we get completely stuck, I will pull out that game guide. Although the last mission looks very, very long in a way that makes me wonder if maybe we should just use the guide from start to finish just to make sure. Because if you've been tuning into those streams, very clear that even using the game guide, I still mess up sometimes. And that game is very sensitive to you to messing up. You just have to pull one wrong lever and you just fail the entire mission, basically. So it's just oh boy. Anyways, so yeah, and then what we'll be streaming after that, I'm starting to figure that out still. I do want to do Quest 64. I mentioned Kaito Joker before, that being a something that I wanted to do, but because I'm getting that 3DS capture card, I'm going to wait on that. So I'm looking at maybe something a bit shorter, maybe somewhere between 6 to 8 hours, maybe, so we can kind of finish it up in a month. And then if for some reason we can't play Kaito Joker after that, I think we'll pick up Quest 64 after that. So getting there, and then yeah, other than that, that's it. Thanks for coming. OneControlPort.com is the website, and I hope you have a great week. Bye.